Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock and I will call this meeting to order. I'd ask if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none noted. Number 3, review of items not listed on the agenda. Thomas, I do believe we have a few tonight.
Yes, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. We have 5 items tonight. An item 1311G, obituary for Susanna Dealman, former treasurer, municipality of Bayham, and president of the Municipal Finance Officers Association. We do have 4 staff reports as well. An item 132G, report TR 0623 from the treasurer regarding the Q4 2022 variance report. Item 132H, report TR 0723 from the treasurer regarding the 2022 surplus allocation. Report 132I, which is TR 0823 from the treasurer regarding the 2023 fiscal outlook report. And item 132J, report CL 0223 from the deputy clerk pertaining to 2023 municipal assistance.
Thank you for that. Any announcements from council?
Thank you.
Councilor Chilcott?
Yes, I just wanted to announce that this Friday evening, the Strathfield Hall Foundation will be holding a family dance in honor of Family Day. And on Sunday, the church group from this area is holding a movie night, which starts, I believe, at 5 p.m. And if you have a cardboard box that you can bring and decorate and use it as a drive-in, they welcome that. They'll have some stuff for you to decorate it, and they're hoping for lots of people to come out. And the movie is Minions. Minions something else. Oh, sorry, and it's at the Stratfordville Hall.
Thank you for that. Thomas?
Thank you. Just one quick announcement, a reminder that in observation of Family Day, the office will be closed next Monday.
Okay. Moving on to, we have no presentations or delegations this evening, so moving on to section 7, adoption of the minutes of the previous meetings. A regular council meeting held February 2nd, 2023. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those minutes? Any errors or omissions? I have a motion that the minutes from the regular council meeting held February 2nd, 2023 be approved as presented. Can I have a mover? Councillor Chilcott, seconded by Timothy. Councillor Emerson, all those in favor? And that motion is carried. Moving all the way down to section 11, physical services, 11.2, reports to council. A, report BL 01/23 by Barry Hernick, Fire Chief by Law Enforcement regarding new dog regulation bylaw.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. As the fire chief is unable to attend tonight, I will be presenting on his behalf. At the October 6th, 2022 meeting, council received a bylaw report pertaining to the animal control bylaw and the requirement for dog licensing. Council received this report and motioned that dog licensing through the municipality would no longer be required as of January 1st, 2023. So this is currently in force and effect. Instead, there would be the requirement for owners to provide a form of dog identification by means of tag and or microchip. The final step in this process is to bring forward a bylaw to formalize the change. In discussion internally and given the degree to which the current bylaw relies on internal dog licensing, it's necessitated a review, including review of adjacent municipalities' dog regulation bylaws and bringing forward a new bylaw to replace the current rather than doing a repeal of an individual section. The bylaw lays out 12 changes. Most of these are relatively small changes. Major changes appear to the kennel section. So that's section 5, section 6, as it pertains to kennels and animal rescue shelters, requiring properly constructed, clean, well-ventilated, and safe facilities, and also requiring annual inspections or inspections upon complaint. Also noting that this section, a license may be revoked and an appeal process to council may be continued for any revocation. It should be noted that kennels and animal rescue shelters do have to have proper zoning in place, which requires a zoning bylaw amendment and site plan approval. Some of the others include clarification with respect to administration and rights of entry to land for a bylaw enforcement officer, protection against civil recourse, and obviously the repeal of the old bylaw and enactment of the new. The fire chief, bylaw enforcement officer, and deputy clerk worked to put this bylaw together. It is before council for consideration, and both the deputy clerk and I are available for questions should there be any. So with that, Madam Deputy Mayor, I'll leave it with you and council.
Thank you for that. Any questions from council?
Through you, Deputy Mayor,
Councilor Emerson.
I would like staff to consider adding another category, and that's like a breeder license to maybe and an associated penalty to maybe try to put a damper a bit on indiscriminate breeding of dogs that would lie outside the kennel regulations and the puppy mill size. So a kennel, I get the regulations, but there's nothing saying that somebody can't have 3 dogs in the country and hire a stud and indiscriminately breed and fall outside the jurisdiction of the bylaw. So maybe if somebody is commercially selling puppies, they should come under some kind of breeder's license. I would wish that staff could consider that addition somehow.
Thank you for that. Thomas, do you have a comment on that?
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, to the councillor. Ultimately, should council wish us to, consider further information in the bylaw pertaining to breeding outside of, say, kennel operational sections, we can do that. We would just need a motion to refer it back to staff and further consideration. So those are my comments.
And through you, Deputy Mayor, if I'm not mistaken, I would believe that that falls under the kennel license because we do ask like what dogs they have and what breeds and like if they're breeding. I might be mistaken, but.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I know what you're saying, and I thought so too at first, but I could own 3 dogs, hire a stud dog to come in, and I would still essentially have a puppy mill and fall outside the regulations. So
And I would believe that that would be a bylaw infraction, and then if there was a complaint and investigated, then they would be required to obtain a license.
that's what I'm asking, but they wouldn't require a kennel license. They would require like a beat it. There's no requirement. If you say the stipulation is 4 dogs to get a kennel license and that's in there, then how are you going to control someone that has 3 dogs? That's what I'm saying.
If I may, through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, I think the consideration could be a further definition of what is considered a dog. So if there's a puppy mill, obviously puppies up to a certain age would be considered puppies, and after that point in time, they would be considered dogs under the bylaw. Some municipalities define dogs over and above a specific age to address this matter. I believe Megan has a further comment to this, so I'll defer to her.
I believe that was one of the amendments that Chief Baranick included in the definition of dog, now includes dog of any age in the proposed bylaw.
Okay, so through you once again, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah.
Maybe we should add the language dogs commercially for commercial sale of dogs in with the kennel part. And it's not including number of dogs. I just think there's a little bit of a loophole and maybe she could tighten up a bit. Just think about that one. I make a motion if it's needed, but
Okay, and so for clarification, is that something that we would normally see in a bylaw? Would we be referencing breeding licenses through this type of bylaw, or would that be a separate bylaw altogether?
Madam Deputy Mayor, that would usually be through this bylaw.
Okay.
It would be done operationally, as kennels can be very broad. Usually you'd have a boarding or a breeding kennel, which are the 2 main types, or you could have your, general household leisure kennel for, Joe Public that wants to have more than 3 dogs. Now, with respect to amending the language in the bylaw. Ultimately, if that's what council is interested in, I wouldn't feel comfortable amending the language on the fly with the bylaw enforcement officer not present tonight. And recommend that if that is the way council wants to go, that it be referred back to staff for further consideration.
Can I get a
Through you,
motion?
Mr. Oh, sorry. My apologies.
I'm just, and
Counselor
yes,
Chilcott?
I agree that something needs to be done to prevent puppy mills. I'm just wondering if you could include the types of kennels that get licensed, and anything other than that is considered to be puppy mill. Because you'd mentioned that a breeder's mill or a boarding, or sorry, a breeder's kennel or a boarding kennel. Those are the two types that get licensed. And if you don't have a license, then you can't be breeding animals.
For
Would
clear,
that work in there?
for clarification, it would be like, I own a car, but I don't have a driver's license. So I can own a kennel. But I can own a breeding facility, but I'm not licensed. It's two different things. A kennel is a physical thing, a breeder is a person. Right, so there's like, it's just language. I just wish the language was tightened up a bit, that's all.
Yes, Counselor Prose.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I guess to me, it's a little, that muddies it a little bit. If I had 2 female dogs and the neighbor dog comes and impregnates them both, I'm not allowed to sell the puppies. I guess commercially, can I give them away? I guess there, it just opens up a, like, to private ownership of dogs. Yes, I'm totally with you against puppy mills, but I do want to have 2 female dogs.
Deputy Mayor, I get that, and I know that's where it gets into freedoms to do what you want and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I just was thinking there's some way, and we have to tread lightly because I don't know, maybe I have a prized dog that I want to breed once. And I don't want to get a breeder's license. I don't know how you would define the language, but I just know of somebody right now that has 3 dogs that brings a stud in because he's been in trouble and still sells puppies. So he is lying outside the jurisdiction of Dubai. That's all. I just maybe consider just adjusting the language a little bit.
Thank you. So back to staff, if I may. Perhaps we could defer this until we can tighten up that language with Chief Barnett, have a conversation with him.
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, what we could do is we could receive the staff report and defer the bylaw and to refer the bylaw back to staff for further consideration. That could be the way we do it. And we'd have to identify that the referral back to staff would be with respect to language with respect to kennels and an application.
Okay, so before we move forward on that, is there any other comments or concerns regarding this report? Seeing none, I'm going to bounce that over to you if I may, Thomas.
Yeah, just give me 30 seconds here to wordsmith something.
All right. So we have a report before us, that report BL 0123 regarding new dog regulation bylaw be received for information. 10 seconds there for the rest of that wording.
And that bylaw number 2023-011 be referred back to staff to consider revisions to section 5 regarding kennels, types and applications.
Do I have a mover for that? Counselor Emerson? Seconded, Counselor Chilcott, all those in favor? And that motion is carried.
Thank you.
Moving on to section 12, development services. We have report 12.1.1A, notice of passing of zoning bylaw amendment Latimer. Any concerns, questions on that? Seeing none, I have a recommendation here that item 12.1.1A be received for information. Can I get a mover? Counselor Chilcott, seconded. Counselor Emerson, all those in favor? And that motion is carried. On to section 13, finance and administration. 13.1.1, receive for information. A, Ontario Provincial Police regarding tragic event in Memphis, Tennessee. B, Office of Minister responsible for emergency regarding provincial emergency management strategy and action plan. C, City of Brantford regarding via rail cancellations. D, Municipality of West Elgin regarding request to review bylaw EC/1 parking bylaw. E, Long Point Region Conservation Authority regarding Board of Director meeting minutes of January 11th, 2023. F, Elgin County regarding what's new in Elgin, February 2023. G, obituary for Susanna Jeanette Dealman. Do we have any questions, concerns, or comments on the correspondence? Thomas?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just a couple of quick points for council's consideration. So with respect to the item D, Municipality of West Elgin correspondence, this was included because the municipality does have county roads in its jurisdiction. I would also note that Southwold is in support of this, and on Tuesday, Elgin County Council was in support of a fulsome review. So this will encompass a collaboration with lower tier partners. And with respect to item G, given that the deceased is a former treasurer of Bayham, former employee of both Malahide and Southwold, MOFA director, we wanted it included on the council agenda for public consumption. This is also the reason why our flags are currently flying at half-mast per our flag protocol.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion that items 13.1.1A through G be received for information. Can I get a mover? Councillor Froese, seconded by Councillor Chilcott. All those in favor? And that item is carried. Requiring action tonight, 13.1.2A, Otter Valley Naturalists regarding the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. Speaking to that one, Thomas?
I can, Madam Deputy Mayor. This correspondence came in from Mr. Tom Manley, is the president of the Otter Valley Naturalists, pertaining to the Monarch Pledge. This is a pledge that governments can undertake to support monarch species. Correspondence does include 4 recommendations that staff can consider operationally to not only provide education on what environments monarchs prefer, but also to establish those within the community. While no direction was explicitly requested in the correspondence, it is under action as if council does wish further action on this, it can be referred to staff for further consideration operationally. So with that, Madam Deputy Mayor, I'll leave it with you and council.
Okay, any comments? Any thoughts?
Do we,
Councillor Chilcott?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think this is a good idea. I don't know that we can do everything, but I think we should do our best to encourage monarch butterflies in our area. They're a necessity, and yeah, I think we need to do something for it. I don't know what else we can do. We do have a lot of our ditches that are not mowed. I guess using the timing for when we do mow them, once they start growing the weeds and everything bigger, might be a good idea that we don't cut them down too soon. Something along that line.
Thank you for those comments. Councillor Emerson, did I see your hand or no?
do we have, pardon my ignorance, but does somebody select plants and species types in the flower beds in the parks in the municipality? And should they consider more native species instead of whatever peonies or whatever you plant, like maybe lean towards milkweeds, which is fine by me, right?
And I do believe that, again, I think that would be a way to flip that back to Public Works and maybe have a conversation with Steve and see through you to Thomas there.
Yes, through you, Madam Deputy Mayor. So staff would be pleased to consider these recommendations if referred back to staff, and we could consider them within the scope of operations and where they might fit best within the budget and within Public Works work plan. So If that is something that council is interested in, then we could certainly be amenable to that.
Counselor.
I'd like
Yep.
to move that we take another look at it and see where we can improve on safeguarding our butterflies.
Nature to have some wording for that, okay. So I have before us a report that correspondence from the Otter Valley Naturalists regarding the mayor's monarch pledge be received for information. And that council,
The council refer the recommendations and the correspondence received from the Otter Valley Naturalists to staff for further consideration within operations.
do I have a mover? Counselor Chilcott, seconded by Counselor Emerson, all those in favor? And that motion is carried. 13.2 reports to council. We have a number of financial reports coming to us today, so we're going to bounce around our agenda just a little bit so that we can give Lauren the floor until he's finished, so we'll just follow along. So the first report I have here is TR 03/23 by Lauren James, Treasurer, regarding 2022 Public Sector Salary Disclosure Act.
Good evening, Madam Deputy Mayor and members of council. Before you tonight is an annual boilerplate report, TR03, which is the 2022 Public Sector Salary Disclosure Reporting. No different than in previous reports in years past. If council has any questions, I'll answer them.
I think this is more of a housekeeping issue. Yes, Lauren, it's one
It's
of
a
our,
compliance requirement with the Ontario government, so it's just a matter of council report / and then the provincial filing, which already has been done.
any questions from council? So we have a report that reads that report TR 03/23 regarding 2022 Public Sector Salary Disclosure Act be received for information. Can I have a mover? Counselor Prose, seconded by Counselor Chilcott. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. On to report TR 04/23 by Lauren James, Treasurer, regarding 2022 investment report.
Thank you again, Madam Deputy Mayor. Again, another annual boilerplate report. This report highlights our investments for the year. A little bit different than the previous year with a different balance of investments. The previous year, we had 90% in the LES fund. Now we have more fixed one-year GIC bonds. As you notice, the yields are indicated on the appendix. And if council has any questions regarding yield reserves or restricted balances or other, I will gladly take the questions.
Any questions from council? Lauren, given the current climate, do you see any red flags coming with these investments?
The only downside red flag we have is the LAS bond fund. The LAS bond fund is a high yield investment product, but unfortunately operates like a mutual fund. So as interest rates go up, the yields unfortunately reverse the curve goes down. Now, we've been able to combat that in the short term with our short-term holdings, both in the GIC as in the 1 year on both the terms, as well as with a report tonight on additional short-term investment options for council. So staff are aggressively looking at ways to increase yield on cash reserves and reserves on hand.
Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, that report TR 04/23 regarding 2022 investment report be received for information. Can I have a mover? Counselor Emerson, seconded by Counselor Chilcott. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Moving on to report TR 05/23 by Lauren James, Treasurer, regarding 2022 council remuneration and expenses.
Thank you again, Madam Deputy Mayor. Before you in council is again, another boilerplate report, annual compliance requirement. So it's 22 council remuneration expenses for the existing council and the previous council in fiscal 22. So any questions? I'm here to answer them.
Any questions or concerns? Thank you for that, Lauren. Okay, that report TR 05/23 2022 regarding council remuneration and expenses be received for information. Can I get a mover? Counselor Rose, seconded by Counselor Chilcott. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. And we're going to bounce to G. Section, part G, report TR 0623 by Lauren James Treasurer regarding 2022 Q4 variance report.
Thank you again, Madam Deputy Mayor and members of council. Again, this is a standard report that comes out every quarter, highlights operations year to date for fiscal 22 as well as capital. A couple things to note, we did have an impact on the current high inflation that did increase some operating expenses in most departments, as well as slowed new tax growth based on the fact that we had the Bank of Canada that had interest rate hikes last year. Some of the outstanding risks are still identified: supply constraints of materials, foreign exchange fluctuations, interest rate hikes, the ongoing issues we have with the storm sewers. Obviously, we still have a weather factor when it comes to winter, as well as any weather storms that can impact municipal services and infrastructure. If the council has any questions regarding any of the appendixes, I will gladly answer them.
Okay, council, any questions in regards to this report? You're really good at writing reports.
Try to get it all done one night.
No questions.
Madam Deputy Mayor.
So that staff report TR 0623 regarding 2022 Q4 variance report be received for information. Can I have a mover? Counselor Prose. And Counselor Chilcott, seconded, and all those in favor? And that motion is carried. All right, on to H, report TR 0723 by Lauren James Treasurer regarding 2022 surplus allocation.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor and council. So with fiscal 22 closed and the auditor coming here within the next week and a half. Before you is the unaudited year-end number. So our year-end surplus number is $1,647.68. One of the shallowest surpluses we've had in a while. Our capital surplus was $73,351.46. We had an operating deficit of 71. Again, a lot of this was due to high inflation. We budgeted 3. A lot of inflation last year ran close to 6. We also had revenue impact headwinds in the back end of the year. Now there is some considerations in both the requests tonight as well as the attachments. One highlight takeaway: year over year, our reserves increased 1.35 million. Now I repeat that for everyone who's listening. BAM's reserves increased 1.35 million. We are on the path to financial economic sustainability, and we are effectively achieving one of the council's objectives, which is termination of Project Ojibwe debt in March of 2025. If council has any questions on the surplus report recommendation, as well as the revised reserve funds incorporating the recommended surplus, I will gladly answer them.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, just to clarify that with respect to the operating deficit and outside of inflationary pressures, there were a couple of functions where we saw the lion's share of the impact, the first of which would be fuel. Public Works, Fleet and Fire had a substantial additional outlay that was unforeseen with respect to fuel costs in 2022. The other one pertains to expenditures with respect to unforeseen maintenance for the BAM water system and for some of our fleet and public works equipment. We did have a number of substantial maintenance expenses in 2022 as well. So notwithstanding those, we would have been looking at a surplus probably in the ballpark of $250,000, but some of these unforeseen expenses came up and impacted our finances, but luckily we were still able to eke out a surplus. And any further questions, I'll defer to Treasurer James to handle.
Thank you for that. Answered all my questions. Any questions from council? I can note that in here, it says to consider a formal review of assets. What would that look like, Lauren? Could you tell me, is that a report that would come back to council?
So that would report to come back to council. And it would correlate all department heads taking review of physical land assets and other assets that are deemed not essential to core operations or considered redundant. And the CAO would bring that report back from the consolidated and comprehensive list from all departments.
No concerns, I will read the recommendation here. That staff report TR 0723 regarding 2022 surplus allocation be received for information. And that council confirm the 2022 surplus transfer report attached hereto as Appendix A. And that council confirm the 2022 revised reserves, reserve funds, and deferred revenue report attached hereto as Appendix B. And that council directs staff to bring forward a surplus of assets report for all departments of the municipality. Do I have a mover? Counselor Emerson, seconded by Counselor Chilcott. All those in favor? And that's carried. How you doing, Lauren? You holding up? All right, on to I. Report TR 08/23 by Lauren James, Treasurer, regarding 2023 fiscal outlook report.
Thank you again, Madam Deputy Mayor and members of council. So this will be our third installation of this report. Last year, we had it for the fiscal ending in 21, and we also did a 6-month snapshot. I really like this report to outline positives, negatives, as well as any headwinds or upcoming opportunities financially that can impact the municipality. As you noted, we are seeing some revenue growth. Again, that is correlation with Bank of Canada interest rate hikes. That does have a tailwind when it comes to new development, building, and assessment coming on board, especially when it comes to borrowing and interest rates, both residential and commercial. We are still in a period of high inflation. And what I mean by high inflation, inflation that exceeds the mandated Bank of Canada core inflation of 3% or greater. That's why the Bank of Canada is tightening monetary supply, new interest rate hikes to get core inflation within its mandated target. They're projecting that it will continue to slowly ease off in the back end of fiscal 23. As well as with several municipalities, we continue to have challenges both on recruitment, retention, and retirement when it comes to full-time retirement, part-time, or casual positions, or even some of our volunteer ranks. So again, that's an item for consideration. And many economists are still predicting that we're in a very tight labor market with many positions, but few people candidates for applications. Obviously, the debt risk is still a consideration. However, council has made positive steps forward with this year's 2023 capital budget, allocating 1.1 million to the guarantorship loan. And with further allocations outlined in the 2024 and 2025 capital budget for council consideration. Now, obviously, we do have unforeseen expenses. First one being the Port Royal Lighthouse and the additional capital costs for the Strathfield Community Hub project. Again, detailing staff reports will come back to council outlining what the cost impacts are and opportunities going forward. However, there's a positive. Last year, we removed all the arrears from our gas tax oil accounts. They're all cleaned up and in good standing. We have increased and improved our receivables for other accounts. And we had the opportunity tonight to do another $500,000 GIC. And after my discussion yesterday with Royal Bank, I was able to coax them into a higher rate than what's on the appendix. So those are all positives. So the reports are for you. And the rate that the Royal Bank will be offering us tomorrow is 5.25 on a 1-year fixed GIC. And that'll also be applicable to the cemetery board, who also has indicated they would like to invest as well.
Thank you for that. Well, there's some good news on the horizon. Thank you for that. Any questions or concerns from council? Councilor Emerson?
I really think we have to take a hard look at the Stratfordville Hall. I don't think 20% is acceptable, considering that it's way above CPI and our target overall as a municipality. I really think we gotta look at some options in there. bringing that in line with all the restrictions that we have done as a municipality.
Thank you. Through you to Thomas there. Thank you.
For you, Deputy, Madam Deputy Mayor. So we're still waiting on detailed costing to come in from A-Link on this. As soon as we have detailed line by line costing, we'll be bringing that to council for consideration. Depending on what those costs are, it may require consideration of a reduction in scope of the project. That'll all be open once we have more information to provide.
Do we have a time projection on that report, maybe?
Madam Deputy Mayor, I don't have a definitive time. We're hoping and we're optimistic it'll be March.
All right. Any other questions or concerns? Counselor Chilcock.
Thank you. It's not really a concern or a question. I just wanted to say good work, Lauren. Very difficult to get a bank to give us more money than what they want to give us. So I think that you've done a great job in doing that and keeping everything else in line. And as always, your reports are very well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chilcott. A lot of the financial success are shared by the department heads, as well as the team, as well as our CEO. So again, this is a group effort yet again to effectively have a very good fiscal 22. Yes, it's a smaller surplus, but we improved our reserves and we are moving the direction where council wants us to be for some of those timelines. So very positive on that respect. And there is some challenges, but there's opportunity to work through those challenges as well.
Yes, we have a path in place and I think we're on the right path. So thank you very much for that report, Lauren. So we have here before us the staff report TR 0823 regarding 2023 fiscal outlook report be received for information. And that council directs staff to invest $500,000 for the municipality of Bayham and $10,000 for the Stratfordville Cemetery into a one-year GIC with Royal Bank of Canada. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chilcott, seconded by Councillor Prose. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you very much, Lauren.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor and Council.
We're gonna jump back to report D. Part D, report CL 01/23 by Megan Elliott, Deputy Clerk, regarding committee policy and committee terms of reference.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you to council. Before you is report CL 01/23. We are bringing this report forward since in December of 2022, council appointed members to external committees and chose what kind of internal committees they would like for this term of council and directed staff to report back with terms of reference for each committee for consideration. The report has attached the terms of references for a waterfront advisory committee, a museum advisory committee, and the joint cemetery board. The Property Standards Committee does not have its own separate terms of reference because it is established through the Property Standards Bylaw. That previously was not the approach in the 2019 committee policy, as it had a separate terms of reference attached, but this is not needed. The only thing that we need to do tonight in terms of property standards is to include in the motion the remuneration that you would like for the property standards members to have if they have a meeting. It is outlined in the property standards bylaw that that committee is only to meet to hear appeals to property standard orders. So while we were doing the terms of references for the noted committees, we also found that we had to update the committee policy as noted as it had the previous terms of references in it. The previous policy also had a lot of the rules of procedure for committees to follow. So the new policy that we have presented tonight is just based on policy items. The terms of references are presented separately to be passed by bylaw to establish the committees. And then all of the procedural matters will come back at a later date to be included in the council procedural bylaw. So just going through here. So with this, the terms of reference are in front of you for consideration of the committees. And If we are happy with them to move forward, then we are able to open up the call for applications for residents to apply to be committee members. And that information is spoken to in the policy, as well as qualifications outlined in each of the terms of reference. And with that, we do want to note that because the committees run with the same term of council, that even if you were an existing member previously, you will have to apply again to have consideration to be a member. So I will leave it with you. There is a timeline at the end of the report, and the terms of references are attached. So if you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you for that. Megan, any questions from council?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, just to be clear, what is the deadline for nominations for committees?
Assuming we are passing the establishing bylaws tonight, my plan would be to open up applications by the end of next week, which will be done through the online forum section on our website. And we would make a deadline of March 24th. So it gives a month for people to apply. And we would bring that to council for your consideration on the April 6th meeting.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? So Megan, just a point of clarification on the Waterfront Advisory Committee. The bylaw does make note quite a bit to the Blue Flag Beach. But I do notice in the terms of reference that they do talk quite a bit about that going beyond providing general recommendations to council regarding East Beach parking area amenities and matters regarding the East Pier. Now, I'm just curious as to whether that should be inputted into a bylaw or if the bylaw is good.
So the language that is included in the terms of reference, that each of the terms of reference will be attached to the establishing bylaws, such as when we do agreements. So it becomes part of the bylaw. So it is establishing that that is part of their duties. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. If I could just clarify, in the event that we do not qualify or choose to not renew the Blue Flag status, how does that impact this committee?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, since the committee has different duties as well as the Blue Flag, they would still be a committee until council decided if they wanted to be or not, since they can still speak to other matters. I would say if there was a situation like that, that it could possibly be referred back to council to consider if they do want to make any changes at that time. But since that is part of the scope of the committee that they have other jurisdiction to speak to, that it would still be in place.
Thank you, Thomas.
Just also a quick point through you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I had received a couple of comments from members of the community about why the bylaw speaks to the Blue Flag program, but not to the East Pier and the parking lot. And the reasoning behind that is that council is under no obligation to have a committee that handles the East Pier or that handles parking. But given that we do have a Blue Flag Beach, we are obligated to have a committee that handles Blue Flag matters, which is why we identify it in the committee. The previous iteration of this committee was the Blue Flag Beach Advisory Committee, which made it very plain and clear that we had a committee. Since we're renaming this committee to have more broad application, we have to make it clear in the bylaw that it applies to Blue Flag. So that's why it focuses on Blue Flag and not the other two matters that it will handle.
That's great. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there was opportunity there for everything. That's good. Any other questions or concerns?
I have one more comment to point out, Deputy Mayor, through you. So with the restructuring of committees as well, we will be starting to have members of council on each of the committees. So at the time of appointments of applications that come in of residents, that you as members of council will also be appointing one of you to each of the committees to be the chair as well. So that will be forthcoming too.
Draw straws. Okay. So keep that in mind, council. We'll have to take a look at those committees and make your peace. All right. Seeing no other comments or concerns, I have a motion here that reports CL 01/23 regarding committee policy and terms of reference be received for information. And that establishing bylaws for the Joint Cemetery Board, Museum Advisory Committee, Waterfront Advisory Committee, and Advisory Board and Committee policy be brought forward for council's consideration. And that the remuneration for the Property Standards Committee members is $100 per meeting. And that staff be directed to advise a call for application to committees of council. Do I have a mover? Councillor Emerson, seconded by Councillor Chilcott. Did I see your hand? You did. Yes, thank you. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Moving on to E, report CAO 12/23 by Thomas Thayer, CAO clerk regarding strategic plan update, review of proposed initiatives. Over to you.
Sounds great. Pull up the report here. Okay, so through you, Deputy Mayor to Council, Council received in late 2022 a budget memo, a capital budget memo from the treasurer that identified 14 capital items for 2023 procurement. One of those items was item GG02, which was an update to our municipal strategic plan at a value of $30,000. In accordance with that, we've engaged Jennifer Kirkham to assist BAM staff and council with the strategic plan review. She has worked with other municipalities in Elgin County, including Elgin County itself, and is a representative of Western Ontario's University of Western Ontario's local government program. So she has a lot of experience with respect to strategic plan development, public participation and the like. It seemed like a very knowledgeable consultant to bring on board for this review. Staff have met with the consultant multiple times, including once with our senior management team earlier in the month. We reviewed the existing strategic plans, directions, goals, and objectives. And the intent of this revision to our strategic plan is to provide an additional level of clarity with respect to council initiatives over the term. And this stems from some of the comments received over the course of the last year about the communication with residents. And if we're able to give some additional information, some additional granularity regarding what initiatives council is looking to move forward over the next term, it adds to effective communication with the public. So out of the session with staff, we're bringing forward the attachment. The attachment contemplates 3 directions and goals and 3 objectives. These are very similar to what is in the current strategic plan. The addition is the proposed initiatives, and they're broken down by objective. So there are 3 objectives per, and we've broken down the initiatives within each of those categories. This is a first draft presented for council's consideration. We are seeking council's input regarding the directions, goals, objectives, and initiatives for either further consideration by staff and consultant, public participation and input, or for finalization in a document that, like the current strategic plan, will be adopted and posted on the website for public consumption. So with that, I will leave it with you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and council for discussion and any questions.
Thank you for that. Everyone has had an opportunity to review the draft strategic plan. Any questions, comments, concerns? Just a comment, if I may, I do really like that the proposed initiatives are in there. It does look a little different than prior plans, so I do like that. When you made the comment, Thomas, about public participation, what were you, could you just elaborate a little bit more on what that would look like?
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, that would be a really an operational discussion with the consultant for to develop a plan and best practice. It could be as straightforward as posting the draft on the website and advising publicly of a public consultation that we would take comments through our consultations@bayam.on.ca email address, or otherwise in writing through our Dropbox, as we do with other comment periods. If that is of interest to council, otherwise staff can further consider, or we can move forward with the final document.
Counselor Rose?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor. I see some good things in there, encourage development, affordable housing. Am I missing it, or where do we encourage businesses to come to Bayham? I don't know if I'm missing it.
I don't believe it's in the document through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and that's because economic development is generally done at the upper tier in Elgin County. They're the ones that generally handle economic development and business retention. Where did you find it, Megan? Am I missing it?
The last point of the first column, I believe, was part of our discussion where we
There it
bumped
is.
it into that.
Just pull it up. Last point. Yes, point 3 under the objectives, or is it
The initiative.
the initiatives? Working with Elgin County? Yes, so it's not specific to business retention from our perspective, but it is collaborating with Elgin County as they're the lead from economic development perspectives.
Through you, Deputy.
Thank you, Counselor Emerson.
Is this like a living document that when something comes, that this is the guide that staff uses when making decisions and everything? Is that what the intention of this is, or just a general, like, for me or for staff, or because if some points, like if we're really not gonna encourage housing mix types and stuff like that, then we should just strike that out. Because it seems to have been absent in other proposals. You know what I mean? So like, I don't like lip service. This is a living document and that's what we're gonna live by. Then it's fine. But if it's just there to make everybody feel good, it doesn't mean anything.
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor. So the wording is the way that it is because staff do encourage, but we can't require. And it is also very difficult with respect to affordable housing if it's coming in as freehold purchase, then it's market dependent. We see very little interest with developers wanting to develop multifamily and retain the units as rentals. Then it would be very, very easy for us to suggest affordable housing units, particularly if they're subsidized through an external organization. But if it's single family homes that are intended to go to market, that's extremely difficult. We can encourage it, which is what we generally do, but it's difficult to enforce. And that is something that would come up through the official plan review.
Supplementary. Question. That was just an example. I'm just saying if this is a document that we're living by, then it's fine. That was just an example. I
Yes.
wasn't pointing that in particular. I was just saying the concept. If it's just lip service, then really, why have it? Like, so if we're gonna live by it, we're gonna live by this and we're gonna, I know the difficulties, right? But I'm just saying, like, if there's stuff in here that we have no intention of doing, just strike it off of it.
But I think through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, just to clarify for council that this discussion was staff led based upon what staff believed was the way that council had been going over the past number of years, the direction that they wanted to go, incorporating directions through the operating and the capital budget. This is meant to be a guiding document for council over the next 4 years that staff can come back to and the council come back to and say that this is an initiative that we are going to move further in the next 3 years.
Thank you. I
So,
just want the
yeah.
clarification, so it's not like a hollow document.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it's meant to be additional clarity for staff, council, and for residents that these are the initiatives that the municipality is going to take a focus on over the next term of council.
Thank you for the clarification.
Counselor Chilcott.
Thank you, Thomas. This is what we're gonna try, sorry, this is what we're gonna try and focus on. This is the plan, it's our goals. And we're gonna do what we can to do this, but in 4 years, we may not be able to accomplish everything that's on this list.
Correct.
But we're working towards.
That's correct. The objective here isn't that we are going to be able to accomplish everything here in
It's
4
not a
years.
checklist.
It's not a tick list. It is meant to be it's meant to be a horizon to shoot for. And if we're able to accomplish a number of these goals over the next 4 years, then wonderful. If some of them have to carry over the new term, great. But as long as we're making progress on the initiatives identified.
Any other questions or comments?
Just a comment. I like the direction. I think it's a nice document.
Thank you for that, and I do agree with you. That I love where this is going. I am wondering with the recommendation, I know you're looking for direction. So you mentioned a couple of avenues or a couple of directions that we could take. We could adopt this today.
If council wishes to adopt it today, then a motion could be to accept the proposed initiatives and direct staff to bring forward a final strategic plan. The council could also refer back to staff if council wishes us to have further discussion internally about what objectives or initiatives could be considered. The other one is that council could request a public consultation period, excuse me. And we would discuss internally about the best way to put that out to the community and solicit input. So one of those three directions is what I'm looking for tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Chilcott?
Thank you. So just to clarify, if we were to put it out to the public, they would be giving suggestions on what they would like to see the goals be, which may be different than what we have.
They would be commenting on the initiatives proposed, everything in the draft document, and they'd be able to comment on whether they agree, whether they disagree, what other suggestions they may have. It doesn't mean that staff and council will be beholden to what they've suggested, but if there is a theme that is identified in the public consultation that council ultimately wishes to include, it would allow us to do that.
Councillor Froese?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Would that not be similar to the public, what we got through our budget hearings?
Yes, it would be very similar to the budget input, or it would be very similar to last year when we had the public consultation on the schematic plans for the expansion here. It'd be very similar to that as well. So we would open it up for probably 3 weeks, bring it back to council. My math is right, it's probably the first meeting in April.
Are we under a time frame in order to have this document completed?
No.
We are not. What's your flavor, council? You thinking?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I think would be really interesting to find out if we're missing the point in this document, or it'd be interesting to see if there is a community, I don't know, the unconscious hand. So many would be really interesting to see if there's a underlying goal that the residents would like to see. Be interesting.
Councillor Chilcott?
I actually agree with Tim. That's why I was asking the questions about it, because that way, if we are way off base on one or two of these items, we can look at it and see if we need to pull ourselves back in, or if it's even feasible what the public wants. And it may not be doable, but at least we have something we're looking at, and maybe they love it.
Yeah, but I just think like it's would be interesting to know, like we're assuming that we know, it'd be interesting to know if we have the same mindset as who we're representing, I guess. You know,
Could go either way.
that's fine.
Councillor Froese?
That's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to say that I guess I misspoke. I didn't speak clear enough earlier. We did ask public opinion through the budget. And this is very similar to that. This strategic plan to me is something higher level that is for staff, for council. And we have had public input through the budget. There was a lot of public input. And to me, a lot of that input came that has developed this. So a strategic plan to me is a little higher level. Not that the public couldn't have input, but I think we have had public input.
Perhaps staff could speak to that. When you drafted this with. Sorry, I want to say Katie, but I think it's the wrong name.
Jennifer Kirk.
Jennifer, sorry. When you drafted that, was that some of what you were pulling into in order to help shape this report with some of the budget consultations?
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor, absolutely. So the benefit to the way that BAM operates its budget, having the capital approved late the preceding year and the operating approved in January is when we have an election year and we're able to sit down and review strategic initiatives for the term of council. We already have the budget approved. So we already know what direction council wants to go on a variety of different matters. So that's where we're able to look at including things like a procurement review of own source revenues, identify and reiterate paying off the debt attributed to the Ojibwa. And some of the other initiatives that would have come out of the public comment periods for the budget, including some of the more emergent matters with respect to, say, the lighthouse enhancements to the East Beach, which is covered under the budget as well. And the continued development of strategic partnerships and creative ways to provide services. So that's a long way of saying that, yes, budget input from members of the community and from council is included in the proposed initiatives for this plan.
Thank you for that. Just a question, a procedure question for staff, if I could. Is there a way that we could post the draft? If we received it today, post that draft and allow, if someone wants to write in and respond to that, or do we have, if we accept it today, is it final?
If you can, so the report, including the attachment, will be received for information regardless of what the council direction is. If you're looking for a public comment period on it, then yes, this would be posted to the website. It would go out through our communication channels and on the website, soliciting comment through our usual ways. If council wants us to move forward with a final document, we wouldn't be posting on the website because there would be no comment period. Instead, we would just be working with the consultant to bring forward a final document for council to receive and adopt, and then we would put that in full on the website.
Well, I have to say, I agree with Councillor Froese in the sense that I do believe this plan is fully encompassing a lot of the initiatives that and concerns that were brought forward during the budget consultation. So I'm going to leave that up to council, however you want to proceed. If you'd like to put it out for public consultation, or if you'd like to just direct council or staff to proceed with a formal report. Councillor Children.
I think if what public has already stated has been used to create this document, then it would be redundant, wouldn't it? That's the question, but.
Just a comment? Is
Just
that
a
you're just
comment,
making a
yes.
comment? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Fair. Any other comments? Well, we have a proposed recommendation here that reports CAO 12/23 regarding strategic plan update review of proposed initiatives be received for information. And the council provide direction. Anyone here wish to? Councillor Rose, what direction would you like to propose?
The recommendation you just read, right?
Okay, that it's received for information and now we have to move forward. So are we going to have staff draft a final report
Yes,
and bring that back to council?
that's what I would like to recommend.
Do you have wording for that?
Yes, I do. So the full motion through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, would read that report CAO 12/23 strategic plan update review of proposed initiatives be received for information, and that council approves the draft strategic directions, goals, objectives, and proposed initiatives for the 2023-2026 strategic plan, and that the 2023-2026 strategic plan be brought before council for consideration.
Do I have a mover? Counselor Pros. Seconder? Counselor Chilcott. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Moving on to F, report CAO 1323 by Thomas Thayer, CAO clerk, regarding recruitment committee, director of development services, shared with Township of Malahide.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, once more. So this report comes from the approval to investigate a shared servicing arrangement for building, planning, and bylaw services with the Township of Malahide. First step is to get a director of development services in place. They did advertise for this position already. The advertisement has been closed. Malahide Council received a staff report at their February 2nd meeting to establish a framework for an interview committee for this position. This is a unique position as it will be housed by the Township of Malahide, but will be shared in a consulting arrangement with the municipality of Bayham. The Township of Malahide wishes to invite the CAO, the mayor, and the deputy mayor or designate from Bayham to sit in an interview panel. This report essentially identifies that the panel would consist of the same representatives from Bayham and Malahide to ensure equal representation, and is looking for council to accept the offer for the appointments. In that myself as CAO clerk, the mayor and the deputy mayor would be Bayham's representatives on this committee. So with that, Madam Deputy Mayor, I will leave it with you and with council to discuss, and I am available for questions.
Thank you very much for that, Thomas. Any questions on this? I know interviews are coming up. Interesting to get this one off the ground. We're really looking forward to this, so. Any concerns, questions? Okay. I have a motion here that reports CAO 13/23 regarding recruitment committee, director of development services shared with the Township of Malahide be received for information, and that the council of the corporation of the municipality of Bayham accepts the offer from the Township of Malahide and appoints the CAO clerk, mayor, and deputy mayor to the recruitment committee for the director of development services position. Can I have a mover? Counselor Chilcott and a seconder. Counselor Emerson, all in favor? That work? One opposed? Still carried?
Still carried.
Okay, carried. Thank you. Okay. And we bounced around a little, so we're gonna jump to J, report CL 0223 by Megan Elliott, Deputy Clerk, regarding 2023 municipal assistance. For you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to council. This report is brought annually at the beginning of the year after reaching out to local organizations to see what type of events they might be planning for the year and requests that they are asking of council for municipal assistance. So generally, this report lays out the requests and individual approvals or proposed approvals. But this year we included some information on what staff has been discussing have been some hurdles through helping out the groups and vice versa. So for this year, we do want to continue on as usual with a couple recommendations, and for 2024, we are proposing to bring forward a special event request policy at the end of this year to be implemented for 2024. We believe that a policy will be helpful for mitigating some issues surrounding communication and proper resource allocation. I do want to stress that this isn't in a way of trying to make anything more difficult for the groups. We just want to make sure that there's clear expectations on both from the groups and for staff, and just making sure that there's a clear process for everybody. So we think that that will help to ensure successful events. So I'll move down to the requests for 2023. They are outlined in the report for you. And a couple things to note from the requests was that we do not have any requests from the Beach Fest Committee or the Legion at the moment. They were advised of the new application form and deadline, but nothing was received at this time. Part of the Bayham Historical Society, they submitted for their Vienna walking / driving tour event, but nothing was noted for needing a facility or materials or road closure, so I didn't include anything for approvals. And this year I did it a little bit differently as a blanket recommendation that speaks to all of the requests, since a lot of the requests will involve the same things as providing insurance, approving the facility, approving the road closures, subject to XYZ, which is laid out in the recommendation before you. So jumping back up to talking about some of the hurdles that staff face, Public Works has noted that a big issue for them is they don't have the amount of materials that is generally requested from the groups. So we're only proposing to approve the materials that they have, as well as we're recommending, if council wishes, to purchase some additional cones for the road closure usage and implementing a deposit system for any materials. So for instance, if the group was approved to have 20 tables, 20 garbage cans, and 10 safety cones, then there would be a deposit of $10 per item to be provided to us before their event. The cones have been a big issue that Public Works has mentioned, saying because they only have about 10 or 15 themselves that are going to most likely be used for capital projects, as well as they were having problems getting them returned after events. So their stock has been going down and down. So Public Works has advised that they're approximately $35 a cone. Council does approve a budget line item called municipal assistance in the operating budget. So there was money approved for 2023. So we are proposing that you could use funds from that budget item, as well as historically there was funds given to specific groups for their special events, but we're not sure how that was always determined in the past. So we do want to include that request as part of the application process. Since that was not advised earlier for this year, I do have as part of the motion to just confirm that council does wish to do the same $2,000 to the Stratfordville Community Committee and $2,000 to the Bayham Historical Society. Another thing to keep in mind with these requests is the future construction at this location could have an impact on Watermelon Fest and the Early On Tuesday program. I have been discussing this with both of those groups, so they are aware that that could be a hurdle for them. So I have included in the motion at the very last part to say until the facilities become unavailable due to construction or unforeseen circumstances. So speaking with Watermelon Fest specifically and with other staff members about what we could maybe do, we're thinking if construction is taking place at that time, there still should be able to be ways around it with blocking off certain sections, allowing the noted road closure for additional parking. They could put possibly a tent out in the parking lot instead of using the hall. So speaking with that committee, they are still going to move forward with that date and plan and try to work around it as best as possible. And just looking through to make sure I've touched on everything. If there's any other questions, I'm available.
Thank you for that, Megan. Councillor Chilcott. It's okay.
Yes, I was going through this and when you're closing the roads, suggesting that the group that's putting on the event is to contact Public Works and the OPP and everyone to arrange for road closures and all that type of thing. And I'm just wondering if that's something we really want to do. We want them spending our money.
So through you, Deputy Mayor, for that point specifically, the road closures information. So how do I explain it? Staff do as much work as possible for that of coordinating everything that we can on our end. The previous paper copy application forms used to note right on it that it was the organizer's responsibility to let the police, fire, whoever know about their event, just so that they know. But they're not in charge of doing all the steps that staff do. It's just about that step of letting all of these agencies know that something's happening on this street at that time. So what we found in 2022 was that that wasn't totally clear. So for this year, I'm proposing that I will take that on as the staff member that does all the coordinating after these approvals, just to make sure that everything is fine. And then in the policy, we can see where that duty falls to. It's really just a matter of sending like whatever approval I provided them, emailing it over to that agency.
Follow up. So you're not saying that you want them to contact the OPP and say, we need 2 vehicles in Stratfordville for the Christmas parade. You're just saying, let them know that the road will be closed.
That's correct. Staff will still take care of all of the coordinating and details. It's just the final approval that we give the group, that they're in charge of circulating that approval to make sure that the FYI is out there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just a quick follow-up point. This kind of comes out of one of those operational constraints that we have from time to time, where that manning a road closure for a public event is something that generally falls outside of the scope of Public Works day-to-day operations. It's difficult to find staff sometimes to be able to provide this off-hours support, which is why we have the in the motion to utilize the OPP as a backup, and why we want to coordinate it through staff, so we don't have the groups going to the OPP rather than coming through staff to begin with. We want to apply it consistently.
That was my worry.
And on that point as well, sorry, I forgot to mention that, that was another thing in the report to note, that Public Works struggles with that staff member, always getting a staff member perhaps, since they fall on nights and weekends. So that's something that they'll be looking at in the future, to allocate 4 hours for that staff member. So it's more appealing for them to want to take that shift, so to speak, and then only use OPP if we can't fill that shift. And one other thing, sorry, as I'm saying this, in the proposed recommendation, I don't have included the portable washroom request from the Port Burwell Canada Day celebration, only because that wasn't typically included in previous years when I was looking back. So I haven't included it at this time, but council can consider including that if they wish. And Public Works has noted that it is approximately $150 each, as far as he was aware. And that could also come out of that municipal assistance budget as well.
Councillor Chilcott.
Sorry, thank you. I believe in the past, when we were doing the assistance, we used to pay for the public water or the outhouses, whatever. And then we took that out of the budget and gave 2,000 rather than it was 1,500 before. So we raised it up. That way they can do with that money what they want. They don't. And if they need porta pots, then it came out of that budget. Because I know the BHS brings in their own, the FCC brings in their own. So, just as what we've done in the past.
Councillor Emerson.
So is the Canada Day celebration a municipal event or an organization's event, since the museum is part of and owned by the municipality? I think it's upon us to supply the washrooms. It's like we're asking ourselves for permission. No?
I'm just looking to see who was it was.
So
I
through
don't-
you,
I don't
Deputy
think it's
Mayor,
not a municipal
it's,
event.
it's the local organization group that's hosting the event, and they're requesting to use our facilities. So part of the process of this municipal assistance is, if groups want to use the grounds, the facilities, materials, road closures, any of that. So this was just part of their request for their event. So it's hosted by an organization, not us.
I do believe that's the Port Burwell Historical Society that puts on Canada Day
Okay.
events.
That's correct. And so currently, just looking from the previous groups that were receiving funds, that wasn't one of the groups. So just put that up there.
Supplementary.
Counselor Emerson.
So is that $2,000 still there for the outhouses? Or for the porta potties or whatever, that money that they're supposed to pay for, or the 2,000 plus porta potties? What, like, I don't.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to council, at the moment, there was $7,000 budgeted in that line item for 2023, I believe. Treasurer, yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
Come to the mic.
Just to clarify the history on it, we went to the $2,000 allowance to get away from all these additional per diems. So they're given the allotment. And that's their seed money or operating money to spend it. In the past, when groups have come forward, and asked for additional stuff on top of the allowance. Well, once you operate for one group, you put in the levy and have to offer for the others. And that was the path that we had in the past. And that's why I went to the allowance, the application submitted. Unfortunately, some of the other related costs like public works, they have collective costs for if you bring someone in, it's 4 hours, but there's different associated costs. So that's why we went with the $2,000 allowance, an application, and we set the budget that has a prescribed amount in that folder. The one clarification, why the Legion did make an application in the past, they made an application for the property tax status. 2 years ago, the tax status changed, they're no longer taxed, they're exempt. So the Legion will only make application for property tax. Make sense?
Kind of, sort of. It's just that you're basically saying that the request I received for out for washrooms is already covered in the fund.
But it hasn't been determined which groups get that fund. Since we weren't sure if that was supposed to be an application mechanism or if it was just the same groups each year.
Oh. So it is possible that I can move a motion to, I don't know, that's the end of the day because there's a shit ton of people there. So,
Okay, Megan, can you clarify, have the community groups applied for the municipal assistance at this point? Do we know who has actually applied for municipal assistance?
So through you, Deputy Mayor, there is no formal process at this time to apply for funds. The application only speaks to facility, materials, road closures. So that's part of what we want to improve in the future with a policy and an updated application form is to include that they can request funds. Or possibly they could have requested funds in the general application, but when staff were reviewing, it wasn't clear how this was always determined in the past, which groups got the funds.
Counselor Chilcott.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify what I'd said before. We went to the 2,000, it's almost like a grant to these. And so that was, so we weren't paying for porta potty. So again, the Canada Day, they can apply for an event grant or whatever you want. I'm calling it a grant, but that's of $2,000. And out of that $2,000, they can get however many porta potties they want. Right now, they don't apply for anything.
so through you, Deputy Mayor, I guess first in line for that 2,000 would be the Port Rural Historical Society. Porta potty, so if I need to make a motion, I will, but I just want to keep that in mind because there is a request.
I think that's
If I could just clarify.
She said there's no application. Wait,
So if I could just clarify, in the recommendation, it says that staff be directed to provide Stratfordville Community Committee and Bayham Historical Society with $2,000 each. So why is it only,
So this is what's proposed in the recommended motion, just to have formal direction, because previously though, those two groups, as well as the Beach Fest committee, was who was receiving the $2,000. So Beach Fest hasn't submitted anything, so That's the proposed recommendation, but council can choose to motion whatever they wish. If they want to continue on with 2,000 to the Stratfordville Community Committee, 2,000 to Bayham Historical Society, maybe you want to do 500 to the Port Burwell Canada Day event. It's your budget item to decide, I believe.
Lauren, does that cause a conundrum with your budget? Because typically we've kept it at the 2,000, and I always thought in the past, the process was that you applied for that $2,000 assistance.
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, we have a $7,000 budget here.
Hmm.
So if you
Okay.
cut a 2,000 to 2,000, you have $1,000 left in the pot. Council's call who gets to sell it. If you spend over, well, we have a deficit for that line item we budget.
Okay. Thank you. Counselor Chilcutt.
Through you to Megan. Megan, you said that it's only two people or two groups that have submitted anything. They submitted a letter, correct?
So all the groups listed in the report with their requests is exactly what was included on the application. So no groups had formally written in their request about getting funds directly. We only bringing this to the attention and included it in the recommendation because that's who was receiving it in the past.
Okay, sorry, I thought you were
Okay,
saying that they requested the funds.
No, anything
When they
that
did
was
this.
requested is listed right in the report. So there was no actual fund request.
Okay, thank you.
But they might not have known that they had to request that because it seems that it was just happening over the years.
so through you,
Councillor
Deputy Mayor.
Anderson.
I have to give a speech on that day and I'll be particularly nervous and it would be nice to know that there was an outhouse that I can go to. Before or after. I don't really want to wait in line with 50 people.
Now, and now to ease your mind, there are already porta potties down there. So this would be in addition to what we already provide on a yearly basis, correct?
That is correct, that we will have facilities at, well, the East Beach, there's a pavilion at the park. Aside from that, I mean, if council is interested in providing funds out of the municipal assistance line in support of the Port Burwell Historical Society and their Canada Day celebration, then council has the ability to do so, but as the treasurer has noted, it's a $7,000 line item that may have to cover OPP coverage as well for road closures. We don't know what that's going to entail if we can't get staffing for these requests too. So there's that consideration. And just to further to the deputy clerk's comment is that with respect to requesting funds as seed money or support for these events, we really do need to clarify and clean this up for 2024, particularly with some of the budget constraints we saw in 2022. We want to make sure that some of these processes are cleaned up and properly accounted for rather than how they've been done in the past.
Thank you for that. And I do agree that it's very encouraging to see the number of events, and we definitely want to support those events in our community, and we want to do that fairly. So I think it is important that we have a process in place that identifies specifically how they go about getting these types of financial remunerations that we've allocated for these specific events. So yeah, for sure, moving forward, I look forward to that process getting a little more streamlined. Is there any more comments, questions, or concerns? Yes, Councillor Chilcutt.
Thank you. Did they say how many portable washrooms? Two, they wanted two? I would say,
There's a lot.
I would move that you include that in this process.
You just might as well take care of that right now, Deputy Mayor. please. I won't make it to the East Beach, okay?
So we could amend that section there where you're talking about giving money and then just add 500 to,
I'm working on it right now.
okay.
Well, and through you, Deputy Mayor, that's the next step is for the portable washrooms. Would you like to provide funds for them to obtain it themselves, or would you like staff to coordinate that for them.
Just respectfully on that, if we can make that, it's on the organization, we can provide them with seed money, but I know that my public works staff is going to be very busy this year with capital and with maintenance. Particularly with some of the hiring they've been doing for operators and staff turnover. So I would respectfully request that the groups take that one on.
Okay. Thank you for that, Counselor Emerson. We will work on some wording for that. See where we go from there. So I have a report here. Is there any other comments? Questions? Do you want me to start on that report? It's very long.
Go right ahead. Just one quick thing to confirm. There is a recommendation as part of this omnibus here about purchasing 20 cones for event purposes coming out of the municipal assistance budget. Is this something that council is also amenable to?
Sure.
How much is that?
About 700 plus HST, yes.
So if you're budgeting, I'm seeing the portable washroom rental is 150 each. So if we allocate $300 towards the rental of that for the Port Burwell Historical Society, and then the 700 for the cones, then we shoot another $1,000 off of our 7,000, right? So we're down to,
Done 2,000.
so we are at zero, I would say, with what we're gonna be dealing with.
Just through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, we'd be down to 2,000 because Beach Fest didn't apply. Normally they would be allocated 2,000, so we would have 4,000 combined between the Stratfordville Community Committee and the Bayham Historical Society. 300 to the Port Burwell Historical Society and 700 in purchase of cones. That gives us $2,000 of extra funds available at this time.
Did we not comment that we use something else out of that budget line?
Uh,
There are some other outstanding expenses that go through there. No, we're good then. We are within our budget. Okay.
The only unknown at this time is whether or not we have to use the OPP as backup for
Right.
road closures. And that is an
That's-
unknown cost this time.
That's an unknown. Okay. Counselor Emerson, you and I are talking after. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay.
Who's first in line?
Okay, that report CL 02/23 regarding 2023 municipal assistance be received for information. And that staff be directed to report to council with the draft special event request policy for consideration in Q3 2023. And that staff be directed to purchase 20 cones for event purposes for the from the municipal assistance budget.
Two additions here, that staff be directed to provide the Stratfordville Community Committee and the Bayham Historical Society with $2,000 each to be used for their respective 2023 events. And that staff be directed to provide the Port Burwell Historical Society with $300 to be used for washrooms for their 2023 Celebrate Canada event.
And that all noted facility and road closure requests included in the 2023 event submissions be approved, subject to provision of liability insurance certificate in the minimum amount of $2 million, naming the municipality of Bayham as additional insured, and that events requesting materials be provided 20 tables, 20 garbage cans with bags, and 10 safety cones for event use with a deposit of $10 per item to be provided to the municipality prior to the event. And that staff be directed to conduct lawn and facility maintenance as necessary prior to the events. And that the requests for a staff presence for road closure purposes be approved with the ability to utilize the OPP as a backup, and if utilized, compensate from the municipal assistance budget. And that staff be directed to advise external agencies of the approved events and obtain county approval for the use of county roads for noted closures. And that staff be directed to further coordinate details of the events with the event contacts. And that event organizers are responsible for the cleanup and care of the municipal facilities and materials. And that the municipality of Bayham reserves the right to revoke said approvals at any time for any reason. And approved timelines may be adjusted for the use of certain facilities or materials should they become unavailable due to construction or unforeseen circumstances. You've heard the motion. Do I have a mover? Counselor Emerson, seconded by Counselor Chilcott. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Okay. All right, moving on to section 14, the bylaws. So before you tonight, you have bylaw A, bylaw number 2023-009, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2022/011, being a bylaw to appoint municipal officers and employees for the municipality of Bayham. B, bylaw number 2023/010, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a transfer of lands and declare lands in the municipality of Bayham as part of the open public highway system, Clark Road. Bylaw number D, bylaw number 2023/012, being a bylaw to establish an advisory board and committee policy. E, bylaw number 2023/013, being a bylaw to establish a museum advisory committee. F, bylaw number 2023/014, being a bylaw to establish a waterfront advisory committee. G, bylaw number 2023/015, being a bylaw to establish a joint cemetery board. Any questions or concerns on the bylaws? Going once. Twice. I have a motion here that says bylaw number 2023/009, 2023/010, 2023/012, 2023/013, 2023/014, and 2023/015 be read at first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Do I have a mover? Counselor Chilcott and Counselor Froze. All those in favor? And those bylaws are carried. We have no unfinished business this evening, no other business, and no in camera. So we have the confirming bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council. Bylaw number 2023/016. Confirming bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Can I have a mover? Counselor Chilcott. And Counselor Froze. And all those in favor? And that's carried. And the adjournment motion. That the council meeting be adjourned at 8:37 PM. Moved by Counselor Froze and seconded by Counselor Chilcott, and all those in favor? And that is carried. For those of you that joined us this evening online, thank you very, very much. Thank you for your patience. To all those in the gallery, have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining us.